Ever imagine a tiny squirrel not just hopping around in your backyard,
Hmm.
but like going on a huge journey across continents?
Yeah.
Today we're going to dive into the world of Eurasian red squirrels
Okay.
and their migration story,
Cool.
all through their DNA.
Awesome.
It's like a detective novel, but with genetics.
It's amazing what you can find out just by looking at a species' genes.
Christ.
It's like having a time machine, you know?
Yeah.
To see their ancestry and migrations over thousands of years.
Our source for this deep dive is a research paper by Liu and his team, published back in 2014.
Okay.
It's called Phylogeography and Genetic Diversity of the Red Squirrel in China.
Catchy. Quite a mouthful, right. But don't worry, we're going to break it down
Yeah.
and uncover the incredible journey these squirrels took across Eurasia.
The study focuses specifically on these squirrels in China,
Okay.
which is pretty cool because they're found all the way from the UK to Japan.
Wow.
Imagine that those little guys covering such a vast distance. Okay, so let's talk about the how. The study used two specific bits of squirrel DNA, the D loop and the cytochrome B gene, to trace their history.
Right.
Can you explain why those parts are so important and how they work like a time machine?
Well, think of those segments of DNA like a family album
Okay.
with photos from different generations.
Okay.
The D loop changes relatively quickly, so it's like looking at recent snapshots, while the cytochrome B gene changes much slower, offering glimpses into the distant past. By comparing these photos, from different squirrel populations, scientists can piece together their family tree and see when they branched off from each other.
So by examining these genetic photos, scientists discovered something truly remarkable about the Chinese red squirrels. It turns out they likely originated from a place you wouldn't expect, a glacial refugium in Calabria, Italy.
Exactly. It's mind-blowing to think about these little creatures weathering the ice age in this small pocket of Italy and then spreading out across continents as the glaciers retreated.
Right.
It speaks volumes about their resilience and adaptability.
Italy to China, that's one heck of a commute. But how did researchers actually connect those dots? Did the squirrels, leave behind tiny breadcrumbs along their journey?
Well, they left something even better, their genetic fingerprints. The researchers found identical patterns in the DNA of squirrels from both Calabria and China. These matching patterns, called haplotypes, are like unique signatures confirming a shared ancestry, pointing right back to that Italian refuge.
So it's like finding the same doodle in two different sketchbooks, miles apart.
Exactly.
They must have come from the same artist. This isn't just a story about one or two squirrels either. The study found a whole bunch of these matching signatures across distant locations, making this migration theory even stronger.
Absolutely. It paints this incredible picture of a wave of squirrels spreading out from Italy, venturing across vast landscapes, and eventually establishing themselves in China. Talk about an epic adventure.
Speaking of this journey, let's talk about the route these intrepid squirrels might have taken. The researchers proposed a path that would make even the most seasoned traveler raise an eyebrow.
They suggest that the squirrels traveled from Calabria through Central and Eastern Europe, then into Russia, and finally into northwest China before fanning out to the northeast. Just imagine that journey.
It's amazing to think that these tiny creatures trekked across such diverse environments, adapting and thriving along the way. And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of this study, the genetic diversity of these Chinese red squirrels.
Right, and this is where things get really interesting because genetic diversity is crucial for a species' survival, especially when facing environmental challenges.
It's like having a diverse toolkit, right?
Yeah,
The more tools you have, the better equipped you are to handle different situations.
exactly.
So what did this study reveal about the genetic diversity of these squirrels in China? Are they packing a well-stocked toolkit?
Well, the good news is they found high genetic diversity overall in the Chinese red squirrel populations,
Okay.
which suggests they're doing pretty well in that department. But it's not a uniform picture, though.
Okay.
They did observe some differences in diversity between the northwest and northeast populations.
Oh. Tell me more about that.
The northwest populations, those residing in the Tian Shan and Altai Mountains, actually showed lower genetic diversity compared to their northeast counterparts.
That makes you wonder why, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What could explain that difference?
Well, remember, those northwestern squirrels were the pioneers,
Right.
venturing into new territories, likely facing various challenges along the way. It's possible they experienced something called a bottleneck effect.
Okay.
Imagine a small group branching off from a larger population. They carry only a portion of the original genetic diversity.
So it's like starting a new recipe with only a handful of ingredients.
Yeah.
You might get a tasty dish, but it won't have the same complexity as the original with all its flavors.
That's a great way to put it. And it highlights why understanding these regional differences in genetic diversity is so important, especially when it comes to conservation efforts.
So knowing this, what steps could we take to ensure these incredible squirrels continue to thrive in China? What can we do to keep their genetic pantry well stocked?
Protecting their habitat is key. We know they rely on forests, and deforestation can fragment populations, limiting gene flow between them. It's like breaking up that diverse toolkit, leaving them less equipped to adapt.
Right. We don't want to isolate those squirrels and limit their ability to share their genetic treasures. What else can we do?
Connecting fragmented forests through corridors could allow squirrels to move between populations, encouraging genetic mixing and boosting diversity.
Okay.
Plus, keeping a close eye on those northwestern populations with lower diversity is crucial. If they become too isolated or face additional threats, they might need some extra help from conservationists to ensure their long-term survival.
It's fascinating how much we can learn from something as small as a squirrel's DNA. They're like little furry historians, carrying within them the story of their species' journey through time.
Absolutely, and this deep dive has only scratched the surface. There's so much more we can uncover about the Eurasian red squirrel, their adaptations, and their remarkable trek across continents.
Before we send our listeners off on their own squirrel watching expeditions, let's take a moment to recap what we've learned so far about these incredible creatures.
Let's summarize the key takeaways from this fascinating study, especially for those who might have missed a few chapters of our squirrel saga. We've learned that Eurasian red squirrels likely embarked on an epic journey from a glacial refugium in Italy, spreading across vast landscapes and establishing themselves in new territories, ultimately reaching China.
And we uncovered some pretty cool clues about their genetic diversity, which, as you explained, plays a crucial role in their ability to adapt and thrive, especially with all those environmental curveballs life throws at them.
Indeed, and what's particularly fascinating is that while the Chinese red squirrel populations generally exhibit high genetic diversity, we see variations depending on their location, like those northwestern populations in the Tianshan and Altai Mountains.
Right, those intrepid pioneers who ventured into new territories. It's like they packed their bags, grabbed a few essential tools from their genetic toolkit, and set off on an adventure.
But with a smaller toolkit, do those northwestern squirrels face greater risks? Is their lower genetic diversity something to be concerned about?
It's definitely something to keep an eye on. A smaller genetic toolkit means fewer options when facing challenges like disease outbreaks or habitat changes. Imagine a disease targeting a specific gene. If most squirrels have the same susceptible version, the impact could be devastating. But with greater diversity, some squirrels might possess a resistant version, allowing them to survive and pass on that beneficial trait.
So it's like having a diverse diet, right?
If you only eat one type of food, you might miss out on essential nutrients.
Mhm.
But if you have a variety of foods, you're more likely to get everything you need to stay healthy and resilient.
Exactly. Genetic diversity is like a buffet of options for a species, ensuring they're ready for whatever challenges come their way. And that brings us to the importance of conservation efforts.
Because we don't want to shrink that buffet and leave them with fewer options, right? So how can we help maintain this genetic diversity and ensure these squirrel populations stay healthy and resilient?
Well, we've touched on protecting their habitat, which is absolutely crucial. Fragmentation due to deforestation can isolate populations, limiting gene flow. Think of it like building walls between those buffet tables. You're preventing the squirrels from accessing the full range of genetic goodies.
Right, we want to keep those genetic pathways open and allow them to mingle and share their diverse traits. What else can we do to play the role of good genetic chefs, so to speak?
Creating wildlife corridors is a great strategy. By connecting fragmented forests, we're essentially rebuilding those bridges between buffet tables, allowing squirrels to move freely and mix their genes. It's like ensuring everyone has access to the full smorgasbord of genetic options, boosting their resilience as a species.
That makes a lot of sense. And it highlights the interconnectedness of everything, doesn't it? From the tiniest piece of DNA to entire landscapes, it's all part of this intricate web of life.
Absolutely. And this study is a fantastic reminder that even seemingly simple creatures like squirrels can teach us so much about adaptation, resilience, and the importance of genetic diversity. It's a story that stretches across continents and spans millennia, and it's still unfolding today.
And speaking of stories, I think it's time to shift our focus from the past and look towards the future. We've uncovered the origins of these Chinese red squirrels and learned about the importance of their genetic diversity, but what does this mean for their future? What challenges might they face, and how can we help them navigate those challenges?
That's a great question, and it leads us into a discussion about the specific environmental pressures these squirrels are up against in their Chinese habitat. Understanding these pressures is crucial for developing effective conservation strategies.
So we've talked about these squirrels making an incredible journey from Italy to China, surviving ice ages, and carrying this diverse genetic toolkit.
Hmm.
But what does the future hold for them in their current home? What kind of challenges are these Chinese red squirrels facing?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for any species in today's world is habitat loss and fragmentation.
Right.
As human populations grow and development expands, forests are often cleared for agriculture, infrastructure, and other uses.
Ah,
This can break up squirrel populations, isolating them and shrinking their genetic pool.
so I'm taking away pieces of their puzzle, making it harder for them to thrive as a whole, right?
Exactly. It's not just about the physical space they need to survive.
Right.
Fragmentation also limits their ability to move and interact with other populations, reducing gene flow and making them more vulnerable to diseases or environmental changes.
And I imagine climate change is adding another layer of complexity to the mix. We're seeing shifts in temperature, precipitation patterns, and the availability of resources, things that could directly impact a squirrel's ability to find food and shelter.
Absolutely. Climate change is a game changer,
Yeah.
and it's forcing species to adapt quickly or face the consequences.
Yeah.
For the Chinese red squirrel, this could mean changes in the timing of their breeding season, shifts in their food sources, or even competition with other species moving into their territory.
So how can their genetic diversity, those tools in their toolkit we keep talking about, help them navigate these challenges?
Yeah.
What traits might give them an advantage in a rapidly changing world?
Well, we know that diversity is key to adaptability.
Right.
If some squirrels have genes that make them more tolerant to warmer temperatures or allow them to thrive on a wider variety of food sources, they're more likely to survive and pass on those traits. It's survival of the fittest, but in this case, fittest means being able to roll with the punches and adjust to whatever changes come their way.
So in a way, their past journey, their epic migration from Italy to China, might have actually prepared them for the challenges of the future. They've already proven they can adapt to new environments and overcome obstacles.
That's a fascinating perspective. Their past resilience might indeed hold clues to their future success. By studying their genes and understanding how they've adapted in the past, we might be able to predict how they'll respond to future challenges and develop better conservation strategies.
It's like those squirrels are giving us a roadmap to conservation, a genetic guide to help us protect them and ensure they continue to thrive in a changing world.
It's amazing to think about the stories hidden within their DNA, stories that not only reveal their past, but also hold clues to their future. And this is why research like this is so important. It gives us the knowledge we need to make informed decisions and help these incredible creatures face whatever challenges lie ahead.
Well, I think it's safe to say we'll never look at a squirrel the same way again. They're not just cute, acrobatic fluff balls. They're survivors, adventurers, and keepers of genetic secrets that we're only beginning to unravel.
And that's the beauty of science, isn't it? It constantly reveals new wonders and reminds us of the interconnectedness of all living things.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of the Eurasian red squirrel. We've journeyed through their past, explored their present, and contemplated their future. It's a reminder that even the smallest creatures can have the most remarkable stories to tell.
Absolutely. And their story is far from over. We're excited to see what future research reveals and how we can use that knowledge to ensure these amazing squirrels continue to thrive for generations to come.
Thanks for joining us on this epic adventure. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of the Eurasian red squirrel. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember that every creature has a story to tell if we only take the time to listen.